to continue the previous discussion, I will present the process of regulating behavior. So accountability may be elicited both through the imposition of external controls and through the inculcation of self-regulating values. The first aspect, the external controls, involves regulation behavior by outsiders. There are 4 major processes by which employee behavior may be regulated: control, supervision, influence, and management. To fully understand these processes, let us put them in a matrix. So control and influence are often contrasted in relation to the source of power. Control is external to the regulated since it is defined as authority to command and direct, while in influence, the subordinate conforms to the behavior of the higher authority without the issuance of command. The implicit source of influence may be rooted in one's profession, ethical commitments and organizational affiliations. Supervision is same with the control, while management is both external and internal. Next is the kind of rules promulgated by regulator. Control and supervision are both regarded as means of regulating the actions of officials but are contrasted as regards the degree of autonomy allowed them in carrying out their functions. Control is more restrictive. Supervision is more open-ended, allowing officials greater latitude in their actions. The kind of rules of influence are moral, ethical, and other extra-bureaucratic standards, while management is process rules. As to the assumed predictability of results of actions, control and management are contrasted. In control, subordinates' action can be programmed and no discretion is allowed. In management, the regulator lays himself open to options coming from his subordinates. Supervision is same with management since it also provides autonomy, and the regulator opens himself to possibility that a guideline may be followed in diverse ways in different jurisdictions. While influence here is high. The previous discussion taught us the types of bureaucratic power. Now let us put in place the processes involved in each. Traditional accountability, since it is traditional, hence rigid. It relies on control. Managerial accountability uses a combination of control and supervision. In its concern for avoiding waste and increasing efficiency, it may restrict the way funds and resources are utilized, and systems may reign supreme, without regard to their effects on programs, or the administrator may allow lower-ranking units leeway in the use of resources, as long as general guidelines are observed, paving the way to an emphasis on supervision. By contrast, program accountability with its focus on results must use not so much control and supervision as influence and management. However, a minimum compliance with control measures may be required. In process accountability, a combination of supervision and management prevails. Process accountability focuses on the results of the negotiations and bargaining of both regulator and regulated. Thus, regulator must indeed take each action as hypothesis, with certainty rules out, and allow the regulated some discretion in his approach to the program. Let us move to discretion and accountability. Bureaucratic versus professional norms. The technical standards of the profession most relevant to the program may not completely coincide with or support all the standards promulgated by the bureaucracy. For example, a social worker may feel compelled by her professionalism to devote long and intensive periods of time in counseling a person in need. But this action may not sit well in an agency with rules on punctuality, and 8-hour days, well as targets as to how many persons have to be served per week. Thus, a person may choose to disobey the rules of the bureaucracy and still pass the test of accountability, if he can show that the goals of the agency are better served thereby. An actual case to illustrate this resolution concerns a regional director of an agency involved in land reform, who was purged from office in 1975. The basis of the summary action was a pending administrative charge, which contended that he violated rules regarding attendance and practice of his profession during office hours. He, in fact, did not take the precaution of getting an exemption from the latter regulation. At the time under questions, he had appeared in court to defend a group of tenants in a suit against their landlord, an action which he considered as furthering the agency's objectives. So, when the case was reinvestigated, the official was reinstated and received in addition a commendation from the then Department of Agrarian Reform for his act of conscience, legal, and moral decision. Legalism may be carried to the extreme, routinizing even situations which provide reasoned exceptions. Traditional forms of accountability may be criticized for overemphasizing legality. Yet if one would be responsible, the rule of law must continue to be upheld. Extra-bureaucratic standards and irresponsible behavior. There would be fewer problems if the entrance of extra-bureaucratic values into agency decision-making were always an unmixed blessing. In many cases, however, this result does not obtain. An example would be putting the family above all others, manifested in such acts as nepotism or giving of choice licenses to relatives. With all these problems, and the possibility of value conflict, which the bureaucrats may find difficult to resolve, why then continue to press for more discretion by the bureaucrats? Number 1 is the nature of the human being. People will choose, even if the rules do not allow them to do so. Rules may circumscribe their choices to the extent that the pressure of other values is not stronger. Second is the complexity of society. Society today is far more complex than it ever was. At the same time that government itself has enlarged and intervened from the cradle to grave, demands and pressure on government cannot be easily transformed to standard operating procedures, which break no exceptions. Under this condition, it is not possible for rules to anticipate and categorize every important set of situation. Thirdly, the inefficacy of the legalistic approach. The inefficiency of the law seems to stem from 3 main problems. First, systematic nature of corruption. Then, formalism of the laws. And, lastly, the lack of political will.